Hi guys, Deb Acker here, back with another video. And the topic of today's video is really how do we minimize and eliminate long-term anxiety? And I am so freaking excited to talk to you about this topic today because it has made such a huge difference in my life doing this mindfully, right? And not just doing it sort of haphazardly or sporadically, right? For those of you guys who don't know me, I'm an intuitive coach, and I work mainly with women to help them to heal their childhood patterns, to heal their past, specifically around abandonment and the abandonment that can show up when we have physically and or emotionally unavailable parents, whether that's through them working a lot or even deeper through loss, through through divorce and or through addiction that can happen when we're growing up, right? And first and foremost, as I always do, I want to look at the root of this, right? And how the root of this first of all, anxiety showing up in the household, which if you grew up in a household where there was some kind of thing happening where your parents weren't being consistent in some way, right? Where there was some kind of abandonment, right? Where they weren't always around, right? You were going to probably have some version of anxiety. And maybe that's even how you learn to create your life. And I did another video on, noticing this and how we shift this, but I want to give you a huge tool that is not really talked about so much in a conscious way from this perspective, right? It's talked about in a subconscious way, right? But it's not really talked about so much from this perspective in a conscious way, right? And so, in that environment, when we're kids and we are facing that anxiety, right? One of the things that we learned in the process of being around that abandonment a lot was to abandon ourselves in some way. And a lot of times what that looked like was us not being connected to our needs, right? Like it wasn't really safe to have a need that was different from your parent because again, subconsciously in the background was, okay, I might be left, right? I might be left if I have a need and it's different from my parents, right? So first and foremost, notice if that was true for you. For me, I can tell you, I subconsciously shut down all of my needs, right? Or a lot of my needs. And I kind of just took on, the needs of my parents, right? And like what they needed and what they felt was right, right? And in the process from that, I disconnected from myself. So again, notice if that feels true for you. And so this tool is about really starting to reconnect to, and really connect, because you may not have connected to this at all ever, right? But starting to connect and or reconnect to your needs in a very mindful way. So starting to look at the ways like what fulfills you in your life and what really specifically what your personality needs are, right? So my biggest one is actually around emotional connection, and connection can actually show up in many ways, right? So it can show up in spiritual connection. It can show up in physical connection, right? It can show up in social connection. And while those can all be similar and overlapping, notice if you can connect or relate to any of those. A lot of us are wired differently. Like for me, deep conversations really nourish me, right? So notice if you can relate to that too. And or, you might social connection, right? You might like to go out in big groups, and that might be a way that you feel really nourished. That was actually maybe just because I didn't know myself as well, but years ago, that was actually probably one of mine, right? And so more than emotional connection and or there was probably kind of in tandem, right? And the more personal growth work I've done, the more I'm like emotional connection all the way. So again, starting to notice, okay, what are my needs, right? What are my personality needs, right? Let me give you some examples of some other ones, right? Another really big one of mine is really around adventure and uncertainty. And like, I really do love uncertainty, right? So I've picked a career, entrepreneur, which involves being like a lot of uncertainty, right? But also as part of that and kind of in conjunction with that, exercise and nature really fall hand in hand with a lot of the ways that I seek adventure, right? So again, noticing for you some of the versions and some of the ways that your buckets really get filled, right? Like ways that you feel really whole and fulfilled in your life. Of course, another big one for me is around personal growth. And again, so whether you're watching videos, whether you're taking a class, whether you're, doing anything around personal growth, right? Again, if that fills your bucket, that might be one way that you incorporate that into your world, into your reality, right? And what I will say, once you start to identify some of those, so again, looking at, okay, what are the ways, and even noticing when you have a conversation, for instance, that's really fulfilling, okay, what was the magic ingredient about that felt so fulfilling for me? Some of the other buckets can fall under contribution, right? So that can be like, I feel a big contribution in my work, right? But that can also be where we do volunteer work, right? Significance can be another one that's super, super important, right? So again, if you're, craving to be seen, if you're craving to be heard, right? Looking at the ways that you can get those. Safety and comfort and certainty can be another one, right? And especially if you've had some kind of abandonment in your life, you might find that, like for me, I crave uncertainty in love, but in relationships, but I also crave a lot of certainty, right? And comfort there. So again, noticing the places in your lives where you might crave certainty and comfort. And, it can be everything from just making yourself a cup of tea or getting under, a blanket, right? Or putting on comfortable, pajamas, to obviously, finding ways in your relationship dynamics or in your career where you can feel safe and certain, right? And again, recognizing if that's a need in you. So, those are just some few examples, but what I would encourage you to do is to first start to think about, okay, what are the ways that I feel my cup feels most full, right? And what are the ways that I feel most fulfilled? And then start to create a plan in your morning and in your evening, or at least once per day, depending on what your schedule is like, to get those needs met, right? To get those needs fulfilled. So it can be in the outer world, obviously connecting with other people. And it also can be, emotional connection, right? One way that I feel really seen and really heard, and you guys know, if you've been part of my community for a while, you know how much I love emotions, and really I believe that those are the key to aliveness, right? But one of the big things that I do is to see myself in that, right? And to see my emotions and to give myself space for that and to really feel that. So, and that's a really big one. And again, that fills my cup, especially to do that at the end of the day as I process through some of the things that have happened in that day. And, again, it kind of combines that with some personal growth because I get to heal or clear that piece. And it just creates this beautiful setup and this beautiful feeling. So that is today's video. Go ahead and comment below if you got some value from this, and feel free to comment with one of your personality needs, right? And obviously, if you like this, go ahead and like it or make sure you're subscribing to this channel to make sure that you get all of the videos. If you want more information, you can head to deboraacker.com. And in the meantime, thank you so much for watching, and I will look forward to seeing you in the next video.